Hey,
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our second Chomp and Chat. You chomp, you're on your lunch while we chat, and we're just going to have a talk about Tower Gardens. We're going to be hosting these the first and the third Tuesday of each month. So our next one will be June 18th at 1 o'clock Central Standard Time, 11 a.m. Mount Arizona time. So we're happy to have everybody here. I'm Holly Chanchoso. I'm customer care. And this is Brenna Burton, our tower plant guru, greenhouse manager. And we're here today to talk about the heat. Brenna knows all about the heat. And the reason I wanted to bring this up is I had a customer and she called me and her cauliflower was not doing well. And so we chatted and it's like, well, where do you live? And she lives in Southern Florida. Well, cauliflower is a cool weather plant. So it doesn't do well and does not like the heat and does not grow. You'll have lettuces bolt. So there are cool weather plants, warm weather plants, and we are working with our website to organize our plants so that you'll know whether it's a cool weather or a warm weather. But in the meantime, my favorite site is going to the Almanac, the Old Farmer's Almanac. They have online, and it's the Almanac Planting Guide. And you can enter in your zip code and it would tell you when you should be planting. And it's a huge list of plants. So you're not sowing the seeds into the soil. So look at the transplanting of seedlings and follow that for your tower and you will have greater success. Also, the USDA has a grow zone and you can look up each plant and see what's the best areas to grow in. So there are tools out there for you. And so you don't have to remember all this. Go to the truegarden.com website and up in the right-hand corner, it says read our latest blogs. And I just wrote one about what can I grow. So now Brenna's got some great tips. Like I said, she's the garden guru and she knows about the heat. And so Brenna's going to talk to us today about things you can do to extend your growing season into the heat, different precautions you can take, and just talk to us about some of the different plants. So, Brenna?
absolutely. So my first question, Holly, is what are you growing in your tower right now?
I am in Memphis and we are warm, but we are humid. We've got humid weather, and that actually helps. That puts moisture back in the plants. So, when I planted my tower, I've got cucumbers and tomatoes and cantaloupe, a variety of peppers. I have cilantro, dill, I have lettuces, spinach. I have flowers. I love planting a marigold and I love planting the beneficial insect attractor. And I've got onions and all that. So my lettuces are just about full size, ready to be harvested because I know it's going to be too hot for them here soon. So I can pull those out and then that will also give my peppers more room to grow. I've also got green beans. Royal Burgundy. Boy, that's my tip. They're purple. They're so much easier to harvest. Love those. If you need a tip, Royal Burgundy beans are the way to go.
And they still turn green when you cook them up, right?
Yes, yes. I've not. I've been told that. I've not cooked any yet, but boy, for harvesting, it's gonna be so much
Great.
easier.
Yeah. So what's the high temperatures, of course, in Memphis are going to be completely different from the desert area. Here we're high 70s, low 80s at night, up to about 105, 111 right now. So we're going into some pretty intense heats and we're trying to figure out and help people to understand what to grow. So I love that we're going to be putting on our website soon the different temperature highs and lows for each of the crops. So that will be really, really helpful for everybody who's able to grow in different climates all over the country. So like what Minnesota gets up to the 80s,
Yeah.
and that's their summer, and it's completely different. That's our winter. So,
Yeah. No
so
doubt.
when we say heat tolerant plants, that's going to range for what kind of heat that you're in your different areas. So as we put on those temperatures, that will really help you a lot. One thing that we just love is the fact that the amaranth plant can tolerate heat up to about 110 or so. And when we talk about these temperatures, there's still ranges. There's ways to extend your seasons. There's ways to protect your plants, even in the cool and in the heat. Like just this past weekend, you know, we've been up to 100 degrees, about 103 last week, and we didn't have our shade cover on our patio yet. And because I was in the process of sewing it. So we just finished that and got that shade cover up this past weekend. And it's like almost like a 15, 20 degree difference underneath there, because it's about 60 degree or a 60% protection on that shade cloth. So when you're looking at shade cloth, you can do about a 50 to 80%, just depending on your environment and what you're looking at, what area you are living in. So
Does that still let the sunlight through? Do you still get enough sunlight for your plants?
Yep. So when it says 60%, it's still allowing that, 60% protection from the sun. Okay.
Right.
On another area that we have here, I have a 50% shade. So that helps in for those plants. It still allows that sun to come through. You'll still be able to grow your red produce, your red lettuces, those kinds of things. But drops that temperature drastically. And as Holly was talking about, you were talking about humidity, anytime you're adding misters, introducing humidity in desert climates, that's always very helpful as well. But you don't need to worry about that in Tennessee or out in the Midwest
No.
or the East. So
now there are days where 100% humidity. It feels like you're walking into a sauna.
yeah, and your plants grow about 3 inches a day then, right?
Yeah. One thing I noticed that I found very beneficial is I have mine on a back patio and I get the morning sun. So then when it's that hot, intense sun, my house is shading the tower.
Absolutely.
So that is wonderful, getting that morning sun and not having that hot afternoon sun.
Yep. So one summer I just did on the north side of my house, that's where I put my tower, and I was able to grow some fantastic produce, even here in Arizona, for that period of time through the whole summer. I put in my parsleys, my peppers, my Swiss chard, my kales, all of those little hardier crops, and did just great even when it was 120 degrees outside. They did great because of that protection from the house on the north side. So that was awesome. Another thing is if you are around structures that have a little bit more metal to them and they're not protected, see if you can cover just the tops of those with like a white strip tape. We did that on our patio, and it changed the metal temperature from about 118 to about 93 degrees. Okay, wow. And that will help to reduce your temperatures as well. If you're around metal buildings, those kinds of things, just put a little bit of white protection on there, and that will help reflect a lot more. So, how do you keep your waters cool? Do you have to do that in Tennessee?
I do. Once it gets that warm, you're adding water quite frequently anyhow, and that fresh water cools it down. And I know I've had people say that they want to run their pump nonstop because their plants are wilting. Well, I have found that the wilting is caused by minerals being too strong in the water. Because you are adding so frequently, you need to cut back on those minerals. And they can wilt a little during the day, but then they pop back up at night really nicely. And I like to hose my tower down in the evenings anyhow. It's a great way to keep the pests off, but also just reduces that stress on the plants too, just to cool them down a little bit.
Absolutely. So keeping your water's temperature between about 65 to 80 is a great option. So you can always get just a regular thermometer, pop that in there, or some people have put digital things in their towers to be able to read that. Some are using frozen water bottles to change those out every morning. And I do have one fellow that took the coils from a mini fridge and put him inside his tower. So he's able to then keep those water temperatures more stable through the heat of the summer. So it's great. There's so many options now. More water chillers are actually coming out as well, where you can just set it up where the water is just coming out of your tower, running through the water chiller and going back in. Of course, that's an additional expense, but it does keep your waters more stable. If your roots can feel cool, your plants will be a lot more happy. So it's pretty neat.
I've used the frozen water bottles when we've had an extended heat wave.
Yeah.
Those 1 liter bottles fit perfect in there.
Yeah, that's great. So some of the different plants that are great to grow in the heat are your squashes. So a lot of people want to keep growing tomatoes through the summer. Well, that's fine if you're in certain climates. But they really don't do a lot of blooming after about 90, 95 degrees. So you really need to grow those in temperatures that are below the 90. So okra is a great option right now. Watermelon, squashes, parsley. You can do your green beans. Lots of different other options. So,
well, like you said, an amaranth. I mean,
absolutely. Pop one of those in.
Spinach. Yeah, that's a leafy green. That's no spinach. Well, amaranth can stand up to anything.
Yeah. So use it in replacement of your spinach. That's what Holly's saying. Is saute it up, cook it just like you would your spinach in your stir fries. That would be great. Some of your lettuces that you can do also are your red lettuces. So your summer crisps, your magenta, Cherokee, some of those mini romaines, which are your trucius, your brine. You can also do some of those Salanova mixes, varieties. So your red butters, red sweets, red oak, those are great options. And Tropicana lettuce is similar to your Muir. It's got a much larger leaf, but Muir is a little bit more heat tolerant, but Tropicana really loves the heat even a little bit more than the Muir does. So that's a great option if you want to do that. If you'll start noticing that your plants might, with your lettuces, might want to start bolting a little faster, just cut those tops off to allow the leaves to stimulate growth lower on. So if you can do that, it will kind of trick that plant into thinking it still has more life to it. So that'll be helpful as well.
What the bolting is, Brenna.
I'm sorry?
Explain what bolting is. How do I know when my plant is bolting?
So a plant that is going to seed then tends to stretch and then starts flowering at the end of it. And in that process, the plant flavor changes, taste, and it usually starts becoming more bitter. And you usually have more like milky substance that starts developing. So if you crack those leaves or whatever and some milky substance comes out, that's the plant that is getting ready to then start bolting. Okay.
I have noticed that before.
Yeah, so it will start tasting more bitter. Some people like bitter and they keep eating it, and that's great. I personally, no, thank you.
Yeah, I like sweeter lettuces. Well, it's nice to know that we do have those summer crisp varieties. Yes, and the red colored, so easy for a customer to look through and look for that term summer crisp or look for those red lettuces.
Absolutely. Yeah, so many different options of what you can do during the summer, but we are so grateful that you were able to come and watch us, be with us on this Chomp and Chat. So until next time, and then
enjoy your heat and you're growing in the heat, and we will see you in 2 weeks on June 18th. That's our next Tuesday one.